I want to thank Leslie Glover for being here to support our webinar and introduce our presenters. Leslie, I'm going to turn the webinar over to you so you can introduce the topic and our presenters.
Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are across the landscape. My name is Leslie Glover II, and I'm one of the co-leads for the Leadership, Diversity, and Recruitment team that's a part of the Soil and Plant Science Division. Again, I would like to welcome each of you to today's webinar. We're really excited about this opportunity to talk to you directly about internships and job opportunities within our agency. We'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we're hoping that you find this webinar beneficial in helping you understand a little bit about who we are, as well as what the requirements are for our internships and job announcements. So before we get started, let me also just mention at the very end of our presentation, we're going to put up contacts into the pod where you can reach anybody that's on a part of our team. And they each can be reached if you have any questions about leadership, diversity, or recruitment within the Soil and Plant Science Division. As Sean has mentioned, at the end, we're also going to have a question and answer period. We're going to be asking for you to put your question and answers into the Q&A pod. And so if we run short of time at the end of the session and are not able to answer all of the questions, what we will do is to collect them all, and we will answer them all and put out a finalized slide deck with the answers to all the questions that are raised. Just to remind you as well, we only have about 500 lines for this particular webinar. So if we run out of lines and some of your friends or faculty members were trying to get in but they were not able to, again, we will be recording the session and we will be sending that out along with the slide deck as well as the questions and answers to everybody who was a part of the webinar. So today, I'm not going to introduce our whole team. What I'm going to do is turn it over to Luis Hernandez. He's going to be the facilitator for this particular session. Again, I'm really excited, and Luis is going to lead us through this webinar. So Luis, with that, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leslie. I guess good morning, good afternoon. My name is Luis Hernandez. I associated with the NRCS Soil and Plant Science Division. So before we have a full agenda, I would like, Leslie, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, thank you, Leslie. Okay, so let me take care of a few housekeeping items before we jump on the agenda. First of all, we're going to provide access to a evaluation, so you guys can provide some feedback to us in regards to the information that we are going to share with you in a few minutes. And then the other housekeeping item I'm going to just share with you right now is if you have questions. Before even getting any of the webinar information, just go ahead and start to type those questions in the Q&A box. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and go to the agenda with our first speaker. We are going to have Dr. Luis Tupas, who is the Deputy Chief for Soil Science and Resource Assessment, talking to us about what is NRCS and the Soil Science and Resource Assessment Deputy area. So Dr. Tupas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Luis?
Yes.
Very good. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I hope the information here will be a motivation for you to take advantage of our Pathways program, which is a fantastic program for both learning as well as for an opportunity to work for the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So I'd like to start out first with the parent agency, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. The Natural Resource Conservation Service was created in 1935. That's over 80 years ago. And it was created in response to a natural disaster called the Dust Bowl, which many have already shown that it was a man-made issue. So the Department of Agriculture came up with its solution by creating what is called the Soil Conservation Service as a permanent agency in the USDA in 1935. And in 1994, the Soil Conservation Service the name was changed to the Natural Resources Conservation Service to better reflect the broadened scope of the agency's concern. In doing so, Congress reaffirmed the commitment to the conservation of the nation's soil and water resources first, and then it continues to this day addressing many other conservation issues and other natural resources of the United States. So, beginning as a soil conservation service, but more recently with our responsibilities to address many other natural resources, now we're called the Natural Resource Conservation Service, we work to address soil, water, wildlife, air, and plant resources. And we all know those are part of a very important ecosystem where we live in. So, for example, one area we are working on is to conduct natural resource assessments related to pressing water quality issues such as hypoxia and harmful algal blooms. So we're not limited to just the terrestrial environment. We also address things in the aquatic environment in our coastal areas. And then we also lead the major efforts to assess the effects of conservation on resources. We have a program to do that called the Conservation Effect Assessment Program, or CEAP. And we have many partners in this area. And we link to many of our conservation investments to these outcomes. We assess their effects and we evaluate the effective conservation options for the different situations. And as you can see in this slide, the findings are used for many purposes, such as looking at the design and delivery of conservation practices. So we really have a lot to do with the production of agriculture and other food resources in the United States. Structurally, we are composed of two divisions, two national centers, and we have a senior scientist for climate change and adaptation. So our first major division is called the Resource Inventory and Assessment Division. This division gathers data on land cover and land use, and also does analysis of selected conservation practices. They address invasive species and soil erosion. They run the remote sensing applications laboratories in support of easement monitoring and other special applications. They are also responsible for the National Resource Inventory, as well as for doing the remote sensing parts of our studies. The other division we have is the Soil and Plant Science Division, which contains the National Soil Survey Center. And this center is the federal, and together we are the federal lead for the National Cooperative Soil Survey. And this partnership with many public and private entities works cooperatively to investigate, inventory, document, classify, do all sorts of things with regards to soils and soil information. And they produce the standards that are commonly shared by practitioners. I'm hearing feedback, but I'll continue. The National Water and Climate Center. Wow, it's getting bad. Sean, is there anything worth can you find out where that's coming from?
Yes, the presenters need to mute their PC, please. And that should eliminate the audio. So, Louis, go ahead.
Thank you. Much better. So the other part of might be me. So anyway, just to conclude, we are part of a large organization that is responsible for the science of conservation planning, and we would like to recruit as many good people into our organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chupas. I'm just going to ask everybody attending the webinar to please turn off the volume of the computer, and the speakers, please turn off the volume of your computer. Thank you. Okay, we're going to keep going, moving forward with the agenda. Our next speaker is Dr. David Limbo. He's the director of the Soil and Plant Science Division. Dr. Limbo is going to talk to us about why should I work for NRCS and the Soil and Plant Science Division. Dr. Limbo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luis. Looks like I just lost the, part of the PowerPoint here, but I'll continue on. So if you think about it, you know, sometimes when you're just graduating or you're nearly graduating, you're thinking about, you know, where do I want to go? Why do I want to be in a certain position? And really, when you start looking at public sector jobs, I think one of the big things is if you're going to work in a public sector, you're going to make a difference, and you're going to make a positive difference. There's a desire for you to really put yourself out there and work for positive change. That's what the Soil and Plant Science Division is about. We do inventory, but we also work towards trying to help people utilize soils more effectively. So if we look at this quote from Lady Bird Johnson, we are all part of the environment. We need to recognize that, and that is part of what the Soil and Plant Science Division is all about. We recognize that soils are a connection between the various lithosphere, the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere. We are the pedosphere. We make a difference, and without soils, really there would be no life. So what you do within the division is critical to so many things. Just thinking about being a part of that kind of sends chills up my spine. That's one of the reasons I love being a soil scientist, and one of the reasons I really enjoy my work with NRCS and the Soil and Plant Science Division. So when we really start looking at what it is that we do, we are evolving as a group. We are really one of the oldest, longest-running components of our division is the soil survey. Started at the end of the last century, in the 1800s, were some of the first soil surveys. We do much more than just soil survey now. We do ecological survey. We do interpretations. We do training. So our program goals are to inventory the soils of the United States. Our desire, our plan is to have a information, I would say, not a really complete, but information for all of the United States by 2026. So if you come on board now, you're going to be part of that program. We also have to keep the inventory current. The idea here is what we are doing must continue to evolve, must continue to get better information out to folks. We're going to provide interpretations for users. And again, our interpretations may change over time as we learn more and more about soils, and then provide access to promote the use of soil information. Many of you are familiar with Web Soil Survey, and that is one of the components, one of the products of the Soil and Plant Science Division, as well as the plants database. So if any of you have used that database, that is part of our program. A lot of information out there. They're some of the most, or they are the most highly viewed websites within USDA. So where are we headed? What will we be doing next? And again, it's all over the place as far as what we're doing. We're going to be working with unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. We do coastal zones survey. When I first started, nobody was looking at the soils in shallow areas, but now we have a fleet of boats. We have an airboat to do that. We're working in urban areas, looking at urban agriculture and relating soils to urban gardens. looking for contamination and being able to screen for that. We're doing a lot of field analysis constantly to improve our survey and get information out to people. What this means as we are continuing our work is that we are committed to doing a lot of different things. We want to have you here. We have a diverse clientele. We are trying to hire a large number of individuals in the next few months. So for those of you that are finishing up or have finished up within the last couple of years, we're looking for you. We're looking to build partnerships. We're looking to improve our relationship through the National Cooperative Soil Survey, as Dr. Tupas mentioned, with our private and public sector. So we are putting ourselves out there, and as an employee of the division, you'll be right at the forefront of that. So as we move into kind of some of the perks that we'll have here, there's a lot of career advancement potential within the division. As you come on board, you will have a career ladder. This will allow you to move up as skills increase, as your knowledge increases. You have an opportunity to advance. A lot of possibilities for travel. We've had folks travel extensively through the United States on details, but also in different positions across the U.S., but also internationally. Most recently, we've done some work with the Cacao for Peace program in Colombia. We've worked, I believe, on every continent in the world, including Antarctica. So there are some travel opportunities there. A lot of training opportunities. You will come on board and you will need to be trained, because I used to be a professor at the North Carolina State University, and I know not everything that was taught there, where we didn't teach everything. So there will be opportunities to train you. Don't be afraid of learning something new. That's part of the advantage and part of the perk of being part of this division. We will train you. And if you like outdoor work, soil science is great. You will be outside. If you like working behind a computer, that's okay too. We also have need for those skills. In fact, you'll probably be doing both. It is again, number of different things that you can do. I don't think any of you will ever be bored being a member of the division. We'll keep you busy. So please consider working for us, and I'm sure that the folks coming up next will talk even more about some of the opportunities that you'll have within the division. So with that, Luis, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Limbo. The next speaker is Mr. Philip Smith. He's a research soil scientist with NRCS in the state of California. Philip is going to be talking to us about what is the virtual recruitment toolbox. Philip, you have the floor.
Thank you, Luis. As Luis said, I'm Phil Smith. I'm a soil scientist in California, and it's great to be here with you all today. And I'm one of the members of the Leadership, Diversity, and Recruitment Focus Team of the Soil and Plant Science Division. And right now, I want to share with you this virtual recruitment toolbox that our team has put together. So on the next slide here, this is the virtual recruitment toolbox. We have a live link to this in the announcement flyer that I think everyone has received. If you don't have the announcement flyer, we have a copy of that in the handouts of the webinar here. So in the virtual recruitment toolbox, you'll see a few sections here on this slide. We've got information about the Pathways program. The Pathways program, which is one of the main ways that we are recruiting our new workforce these days. Also, we have links. You see under the section for universities, we have a lot of links about the educational requirements for the various job series in the Soil and Plant Science Division. Yeah, all these links, one can access this, click on it, download the PDFs. There's a lot of good information here available. If you are a student considering a career, please check this out. Also, in the career section there, we have more resources, and I'll advance to the next slide. I'll say we have, getting back to the universities, we have several universities, we have several soil survey offices on university campuses throughout the country. There are about 6 or 7 throughout the United States, and this is a great opportunity. If you're on one of these college campuses, you can visit our soil survey office and find out more firsthand information about what the guys do at those offices. And I would also say this information is found on StoryMap, and we have a link to the NRCS on campus story map on the ESRI Esri website. You can find a link to this in the announcement flyer as well, and maybe we could post that link in the comments section here during the webinar. This section here, employee profiles, we are gathering some brief employee profiles from anyone in our division who would like to share with students a little bit more about their own personal backgrounds and career goals. We're developing these. They will probably be online in the virtual recruitment toolbox rather soon, and students can go to these profiles and see a variety of jobs, a variety of individuals who have these jobs, and we want students from everywhere to say, well, look, this is a great job, and look at this person doing this kind of work. I think I could do that. That's something that I would like to do. So those are our employee profiles, which will be linked in the virtual recruitment toolbox soon. We also have several videos posted in the toolbox, and each of these videos are in a variety of environments, people doing soil survey, ecological assessments, work in the field, and this will give you a better understanding of what exactly are we doing, and you'll see people sampling soils and doing all kinds of fun work. It's outside work, and this should give folks a good idea of what they can do in a career in soil science and ecological sciences. And I think that concludes my part of the presentation. Louise, I'll give it back to you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Philip. I see that in the chat box, I see folks asking questions, and I see some folks like Leslie responding to the questions or the comments. Again, if you have any questions, please enter the questions in the Q&A box. All right? Okay, so let's keep going. The next speakers, we're going to have Mr. Rick Tafoya and Ms. Dimitris Busor from the Recruitment and Outreach team of the SPAC Business Center. And they're going to talk to us about recruitment and outreach for the SPAC mission area. So Rick or Dimitris, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Luis. Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Tafoya. Yes, Dimitris Busor and I will be here available for questions afterward, but I'll be giving the presentation on behalf of our section. And we're happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. We work for the Farm Production and Conservation Business Center, whereby in that center we are under the Human Resources Division, specifically the Workforce Plan and Recruitment section. So we represent the 4 agencies. These are the 4 agencies that make up the FPAC mission area, Farm Production and Conservation Mission Area, and they include Farm Service Agency, NRCS, which we're talking about today, the Risk Management Agency, and the Business Center. So as you can see, the 4 different agencies here offer a wide range of technical and financial services to the ag community throughout the country. For the purposes of today's webinar, we're going to focus on NRCS and the work that we do specifically in the realm of outreach and recruitment. So again, in our section, our primary focus is to cover the entire country, a national approach to our outreach and recruitment efforts. These are some of the programs that we are focused in on. And as it relates to today's webinar, we do quite a bit of outreach and recruitment throughout the country. We set the national calendar for the events that we're going to participate. These would include events like career fairs on your campuses or webinars, which we're doing these days, and other events that we do throughout the country. We also collaborate with NRCS at the state level to work together on attending and participating in these career fairs. So it's a big part of what we do within the Human Resources Division and our section. We also have a wide range of partnerships across the country with various colleges and universities, many of which include outreach and recruitment activities. One of the things that we do as within our section is we have to monitor and assess the workforce demographics within our agencies and within NRCS. One of the things that is important is to be able to highlight and show our leadership some of the workforce trends with respect to the diversity demographics. And by diversity, we're not just talking about race and ethnic diversity, which is really important to us, but also gender diversity, veterans, the number of people with disabilities that we hire, things of that nature. So this is a component of what we do and utilize it as a resource tool for our leadership and the decisions they make. Another big part of what we do is help promote the Pathways program, which has the 3 different components that you see here on your slide. It's a big part of our outreach and recruitment efforts, and it's what we're here to talk primarily to you about as students across the country in an effort to try to inspire you to apply for our Pathways opportunities. My colleague Brad Shea, who is our National Pathways Program Manager, will speak more to this program and its various components a little later in the presentation. Additionally, we have a wide range of other internship programs that we administer within FPAC and NRCS, including NRCS. These are just a couple of our internships and scholars programs that we have within the agency, which is another tool, other programs that we use to recruit students into the agency and then ultimately convert these students into permanent opportunities with us. Again, these are a couple of others. These are specific programs that we have with historically black colleges and universities across the country. We also have other agreements where we work with Hispanic serving institutions throughout the nation, as well as other minority serving institutions. And all this is done through a wide range of partnership agreements that we establish through the universities. We bring on, as I mentioned, what we refer to as third-party or non-federal interns, and these interns work within the agency, gain very solid practical work experience. And one of the intents of these programs is to train the students through direct work experience and help them become more competitive for our Pathways positions. In summary, these are some of the opportunities that I mentioned. Again, the big one for us is the Pathways program, which we're talking about today. But just know as students and faculty, that we have other opportunities for students that we utilize as recruitment resources and tools to try to bring in the next generation of students to come work for our agency. In addition to that, we have volunteer programs whereby students can still gain hands-on practical experience. It's non-paid volunteer experience, but it still is experience nonetheless that a student can certainly put on their resume to help them become more competitive. We do a number of different events throughout the country. I mentioned some earlier where we are the ones that take the lead on a lot of the career fair activities that we do at colleges and universities across the country. When our agencies are given direct hire authority through the Office of Personnel Management, other events that we do at colleges and universities and with various national organizations are what we call direct hire events. These are great opportunities for us to go to campuses and try to do direct hire, which basically means we kind of expedite the hiring process for new employees. A big part of what I wanted to share with you today, and again, Brad Shea will also elaborate more on the Pathways opportunities coming up next week that will be announced next week, is this schedule that's displayed here on your screen. As you can see, NRCS has a number of positions that are going to be posted on USA Jobs next week, starting on October 13th, where many of the ag and natural resources and biological science type of positions will be advertised. Many of those types of majors include majors such as range science, agricultural science, agronomy, wildlife, a wide range of different ag, natural resources and related disciplines that will qualify these students to apply for these types of positions. On October 14th, we'll have additional announcement for all of the engineering positions that NRCS seeks to hire throughout the country. October 15th will be some additional internship opportunities that include the physical sciences, information and arts, social sciences, and some of the administrative type of internships that will be available to students from that background that are interested in coming to work for NRCS or some of our other FPAC agencies. And then, of course, on October 19th will be the announcement for the recent graduate positions, all the recent graduate positions, with another round of announcements coming in March. These are critical for the types of students that are getting ready to graduate now in December or again in May, or those who have already graduated within the last couple of years. Key points here to make with respect to the Pathways of application is that all the job announcements will be posted on USA Jobs. So you as students, that's where you go to apply. So it's really important to have your account set up, your profile set up, resumes completed, uploaded, and be ready to apply as soon as possible, as soon as these positions are posted. Because again, everybody needs to apply through USA Jobs. Important factor here is that most of the positions will only be open for a 5-day period, or until they're closed because of applicant cutoffs. So again, if a position is advertised for 5 days, as students, you want to try to apply as early in that 5-day period as possible so your application is considered. And I'm going to let Brad continue to talk more about the Pathways requirements that are tied to the announcements coming up here shortly. Here are some links, folks, for your students or for you students. If you want to learn more about the different FPAC agencies, particular link there too to career information for students will guide students to learn more about some of the qualification requirements for the various disciplines that we're getting ready to post next week and again and others in the future. Our contact information is there on the slide. Demetrius Boozer, my colleague, and I. You're welcome to reach out to us by phone, by email. We're happy to help you students and guide you through the process. Faculty, if you have any questions for your students, please reach out to us. And again, our role is in diversity outreach and recruitment, and happy to help you facilitate that process to get students interested in applying for our positions. Brad, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rick. After all of that, I think Rick almost covered everything, but we'll drive on. So upcoming job announcements. Before we go into that, Rick had touched briefly on the 3 components of the Pathways program. And let me just introduce myself. My name is Brad Shea, and I am the National Pathway Program Manager for the what we call the FPAC, Farm Production and Conservation Mission Area, of those 4 agencies that Rick described. And I think you would see that in looking at all the other jobs that we're going to be advertising and the work that our other agencies do, we are a very matrix organization. So if you see opportunities that may fit what you do, but there may be opportunities that fit what your friends do in our farm service agency or risk management agency, certainly please pass this on to them, as they'll be able to apply for positions in those areas also. So what do we have coming up? We've got, I got 2 slideshows. All right. We have a number of jobs coming up in 2 of the Pathway programs. The internship program, which is designed for those students who are enrolled on a minimum of a half-time basis in a degree-seeking program at an accredited institution. So what do we mean by half-time basis? That's typically a 6 credit-hour course workload or more, or defined by your educational institution. So if you are enrolled in a degree-seeking program on a half-time basis, that makes you eligible to apply for the internship. And the internship is a paid internship within NRCS. Typically what we do is the students come and work during the summer months, and then at the end of the summer, you got to go back to school, because school is priority 1, even when you're in our internship program. We do not try to interfere with your academics. So typically, again, it's over the summer period, and then, when you come, so you can apply. If you're selected, you start working in spring when school ends, and you come on board. You do that great internship work of the soil stuff that you've learned about earlier. And then at the end of the summer, you go back to school. We put you on what we would call a leave without pay status. Then you're back in school. And then if you're an underclassman and you haven't got ready to graduate, you come back the next year and you kind of repeat the cycle. So until you either complete the internship, or maybe you find out it's not, the roadmap that you want to go down, and then you can make other decisions. But the internship is designed to introduce you to the agency, the work that we do, get you the experience that you need. And then if you meet all the program requirements at the end, then you would be eligible for what we would call a non-competitive conversion to a career appointment, meaning that you go from being a student, you finish school, now you're a full-time employee without having to reapply for a position. So that's what the internship program is designed for. The recent graduate program, that's the second umbrella program under Pathways. It is exactly what it says. A recent graduate is defined by anyone who completed school within the last 2 years. With one clause, if you were a veteran and you were unable to apply because you're on military status, there's a clause to allow you up to 6 years from the completion of your date of completing school. So there's a little room there for veterans. So you don't have to wait until you graduate to apply for that. We typically allow up to 120 days within the day you're finishing school. So if you are a fall student getting to finish school in December, you would be eligible to apply to these 47 positions we have open now. If you're going to complete school in May of 2021, we will have another round of announcements in the spring that will look the same. The locations, of course, will be different, but the opportunity will be there for those individuals completing their education in the spring also. Okay. And the third part of the Pathways program is the flagship fellowship internship program within the federal government. It is called the Presidential Management Fellows Program. It is geared towards graduate level students, those who have completed their graduate education. And then there is a rigorous application process for that you fill out. It is very It's a very long process, but not too long. But it is managed by the Office of Personnel Management, who then determines a list of finalists of everybody around the country that applies. And then once you become a finalist, you can apply to any of the presidential management fellow positions that an agency may have. We typically hire between 6 to 13 of those a year, and those normally are in the policy arena, but we are really pushing towards trying to get more of those in the science arena. It would be great if we have a graduate student in soil biology or, soil, whatever the soil's graduate level degree is. That would be great for us to get some folks into the PMF program in there so that we can get some of that on our roles versus just but the policy stuff. So those are the three umbrellas of pathways. Okay. Now, you have the map that shows where everything's at, the little dots there. There's recent graduate positions. If it's green, if it's red, it's or red's a graduate soil scientist, and then the purple, that's our internships. Okay. Now note also that there's, I think, 24 internships for the soils division. There's also hundreds of soil conservationist positions that we are recruiting internships for also. The map would be too full if we should follow those. So when you look online next week, if you're interested, you will see a multitude of positions across NRCS that Rick had mentioned earlier. But there are hundreds, literally, I think it's like 700 that we're recruiting for. So so be on the lookout. They're not just soil scientists. There's also soil conservationist positions also. Okay, so things to do when you're applying for our jobs, not to do. I'm not going to read all the bullets for you guys. You can look at it, but make your resume clear, concise, and effective. Make sure that you just like any other resume, typo errors. They just got your contact information on it, and that you submit your transcripts. And the big thing I would ask for students to do is when you're applying for our positions, there's an education requirement. For the recent grads more, and I'll get to that in a minute, but there's an education requirement. And when you got coursework, when you look at the advertisement that you feel is qualifying, but it may not be real crystal clear to a HR specialist looking at a transcript, annotate on your resume, I've got 3 hours in soil biology, soil pedology, soil conservation, etc., and just go ahead and list those out and what the course number is, so it makes it easier for the HR specialist to identify what it is. Maybe you got a course that is a plant-heavy course, but it was also very heavy in soils. If it just says plants on the transcript, it may get overlooked. So be as thorough as you can for us on identifying what courses that you believe meet our educational requirement. But don't inflate it, right? Don't make your resume sound better than it really is. Don't use personal pronouns. Don't be too humble. Be specific. If you've got 2 years of experience doing soils work, that meets the description of the job, spell it out. Because if you just say, for example, I worked at a soils lab. Well, okay. Well, what did you do? Right? Did you answer the phone? Did you make appointments, or did you do all of the soil science work that goes along with that? So be as specific as you can on your resume for that. And use the same resume. Don't use the same resume for every job, because jobs will change. You have to look at job description that we have. If it's soil conservationist, it's going to be one thing. The soil scientist or a hydrologist, it may be something completely different. So your resume, you want it to fit the description of the duties of the job that you're applying to. Okay. All right, and remember this, right? So the job announcements, they're going to go out starting next week. We got the 12th on there, but look on the 13th. The 12th is a holiday. And it's going to run all the way through the following week. So you'll actually have that weekend. I apologize for that error. The internships will run into the next week, so you'll have time on the weekend to apply to those. Think about this. This is an important thing because we didn't get into the boilerplate information of pathways internships. Will I be able to meet the 640-hour work requirement? What that means is, as an intern, there are some requirements you would have to meet at the end of the internship to be eligible for that conversion that I spoke of earlier. And one of those is you had to work 640 hours in the internship program. Now, what does that mean? That's typically 8 pay periods of 80 hours. So if you work for 4 pay periods, which is basically 2 months, right, during the summer, that can get you to 320 hours. And then if you come back the next year, you do it again, and maybe you work full, 5 pay periods, that puts you over to 640 hours. So most of the time we get there because when the hiring managers are looking at your resumes, your applications, we want to focus on, will that intern have enough time to meet the requirements? So if you're a senior, you're probably not going to meet the requirements. You're really going to be interested in the recent graduate program. If you're an underclassman, a freshman or sophomore, plenty of time to get there. If you go into your junior year, you got to look at it closely and say, make a decision, am I going to have enough time to complete the requirements of the internship? So not to say you can't apply, but will you have enough time? So you got to be strategic with yourself about when you apply, and look for these internships, okay? And then the recent graduates are going to be open the following week of 19 October. Now, do I have enough required courses? So I'll just real quickly go over some of the thing about that. Is for a soil scientist, you have to have a degree in soil science or a closely related program. But no matter what that program is, you had to have had at least 30 hours of natural resources, which includes 15 hours of specific soils coursework. And examples of those are pedology, soil biology, soil chemistry, soil fertility, soil genesis, soil morphology, soil judging, soil mechanics. It's not all inclusive, okay? Those are examples. And there's some that, like soil physics, soil taxonomy, those are the good ones. But again, it's not all inclusive, but that is the general idea of the type of soils work that you would have to have at least 15 semester hours. But if you are in a quarters program, that would be, it's like 0.67 times, 3. So you'd have to add up your quarter hours to get to that. So again, 15 hours of specific soils coursework is required as a soil scientist. Now, if you're applying for a soil conservationist, that's a whole completely different education requirement. You'd only need 3 hours of soils work, but you'd also need 9 hours of plants, crops, and soils also. So like 12 hours of plants, soils, and crops in any combination. And also, on the coursework, if you do a special study, maybe you have a thesis program where you did some soils coursework, and then you wrote a study on that, that may be evaluated as credit also, okay? And again, we got 47 of these recent grad postings that are going out. Those are spread throughout the country. So if you're interested in applying for those, please do so. All the requirements will be listed on the job announcement on USA Jobs. But again, like I said earlier with your resume, if you got a course that you think is qualifying for soils and it's not easily identifiable on your transcript, make note of it in your application so that the HR specialist can make sure that you get credit for that, okay? And that's it. Leslie, I think somebody has a time to talk about their pathway experience.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tafoya, Ms. Boozer, Mr. Sheet, thank you very much for the information that you just shared. I just want to point out that there is a handout on the handout box you can click on that document that is the pathway pre-announcement flyer. You can click on that and download the flyer. It provides more information. I see questions coming in the Q&A box. Thank you for doing that. Keep those questions coming. We are going to address them down on the agenda. But now what we're going to do is we're going to have Ms. Catherine Georges, a soil scientist in Fort Morgan, Colorado, and she's going to talk to us about my pathways experience. So Catherine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Luis. As Luis mentioned, my name is Catherine Gertis. I am a soil scientist. I recently onboarded in Fort Morgan, Colorado. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, so a little background about me. I am from eastern Nebraska. I grew up in a little town sandwiched between Lincoln and Omaha. I studied geology and got a bachelor's of science in that at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I competed for 2 different soil judging teams while I was in college, one for UNO and one for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. That's the picture. You see it right there. I found the Pathways program through a classmate at UNO who was a soil conservation student through Pathways. He didn't end up completing the program because he had some trouble with the courses that he needed to get to onboard, and that's part of the reason we are emphasizing that so much in this talk. So just to give you an idea of the application process, if I remember correctly, the position was open for about 4 days, maybe 5. It was over a weekend. I submitted a resume, a cover letter, and some letters of recommendation from my professors. I requested the letters of recommendation and some help on my resume a couple months in advance. Now, given that these are going to be opening in the next couple of weeks, I would suggest that if you're interested in these positions and you'd like letters of recommendation, if you have a professor or a former employer or something like that who you feel would write you a letter of recommendation, contact them as soon as possible. After I submitted all of my info, then I had to play the waiting game for a little while. The positions closed in mid-April, and I did not get my offer from the NRCS in mid-May. So if it's been a little while after these positions close and you haven't heard back, don't stress about it. Just don't worry about it. I got my offer, like I said, in mid-May. It was about a month after the fact. And then I onboarded in Fort Morgan after doing a whole bunch of HR stuff for the federal government in late June. So I have worked in 3 different locations. I started here in Fort Morgan, where I learned basic soils information, like how to texture soils, what the shape of a chunk of soil looks like. It's called the soil structure. I was taught how to use the soils database, that's NRCS. We did some sampling for a nationwide project called NEON, that's the National Ecological Observatory Network. And then I was sent to a number of different field offices and trainings. Oh, and we've got a mistake here. It wasn't the Arickaree River area. That's actually, I helped set up a new soil series. So if people have some familiarity with Web Soil Survey, you'll know that soils are sometimes given names. And periodically, new soil series are created. And so I got to be part of that process, too. The next summer, I was sent to Buffalo, Wyoming, where I got to do an initial mapping project. Well, I helped on an initial mapping project. And what that means is that there was a 20-square-mile area where a landowner at one time had denied access to the federal government for purposes of mapping their soils. And later, they changed their mind and said, hey, you know, we would like to enroll in some of the NRCS's programs. What can we do to make that happen? And these folks said, well, we would need to map your property. And so then that was a project assigned to the Buffalo Soils Office, and it was part of what we did. The other thing I got to do in Buffalo was participate in a soil temperature study. If you're familiar with soils, you know that there are, what's the word I am looking for here? There are lines of of temperature that are used to categorize soils as well. There's like frigid and mesic, which were the two we were trying to determine where that boundary was. And so we set temperature sensors throughout Wyoming and Montana, and we collected that data about every 6 months. Then in 2019, I was sent to Lincoln, Nebraska, where I also was completing some of the soils credits I would need to onboard later. So I got to work more with the soils database. We did some groundwater sampling. I got to help pull soil monoliths, full-size ones, and then I got to help create smaller monoliths that were from shallow soils. We also did sampling for characterization and dynamic soils properties, which I'm sure if you've taken some soils classes are terms that you've probably heard during class. So I did experience some challenges throughout my pathways time, but they were offset often by my supervisors and just by folks who, you know, really took some initiative and made sure that I was getting taken care of. So one of the issues I had was housing. 2 of my 3 offices were in areas that had really competitive real estate markets, or there were just rentals that were, you know, really hard to find. One of the ways that we mitigated that was I looked in just the classified ads for the town paper, or I went on Facebook and looked at buy-sell trade sites for the Facebook Marketplace and found a rental that way. The other issue that some folks might encounter during Pathways is some financial planning stuff. So we are given a stipend as interns, and for my 2 summers, it covered rent both times, but I didn't receive it until midway through my summer. So if you are planning on applying for Pathways, it would be great if you would take that into consideration, just to know that you will be getting some help, but it might be delayed. One of the other issues that I had was with travel. Normally, a full-time government employee has got a government travel card that they use to pay for like a hotel room and such, but as an intern, you're not given that. So what my supervisor did in Fort Morgan was he suggested that I have my own credit card, or once again, you have to plan ahead of time for this travel, and be reimbursed later. This is not something that normally happens, but it was an exception that the summer I was in Fort Morgan the first time, there was going to be some travel that went on. So another issue, if you are applying for a Pathways, or if you're offered the position, I would highly suggest that you send a message to whoever your supervisor is going to be and ask them what kind of things you're going to need to do to get prepared to go to the field. For instance, when I came to Colorado, I was not aware that there were prickly pear cactus in pastures, and I thought I was going to get away with just wearing tennis shoes when we went to the field. I needed something that was going to keep my feet from getting all cactus spiked up, and once I knew that, I was able to pack accordingly. The other issue that you might encounter is computer access. So it would be great if you could talk with your supervisor beforehand and make sure that they have got some kind of a plan for you. If your first summer you don't have access to a computer, because we have to have a login card when we access our computers here at work, and you usually don't receive that until the end of your first summer. So it'd be really helpful if most of the work you're doing is field-based. The last thing, and I had a lot of help on this one, was figuring out which credits I needed when I was going to onboard. I wanted to make sure that I didn't waste 2 years of time as an intern, and I had a lot of help on this. Big shout out to John Warner in Salina, Kansas, and Dr. Becky Young at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. The 2 of them worked through a lot of issues with me determining which classes would and would not count for my soils credits. And I ended up spending a couple of semesters taking classes both in Omaha and in Lincoln in order to make sure that I got all the credits necessary. And so that's just make sure that you're planning ahead of time if you can. Do your best to speak with your supervisor about getting a mentor. My mentor was absolutely phenomenal in making sure that things panned out for me in the right way. So just, don't think you have to do it all on your own, because I promise you don't. Luis, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Gertz. Very nice done. So now we're going to go into the question and answer session. We're going to have Ms. Kendra Mosley. Kendra is an ecological site research specialist in Davis, California. So Kendra, you have the floor.
Okay. I wanted to just start reading some of these questions. I can't say that we're going to be able to touch on all of them, so I might sort through and hit some of the ones that I think would be great for us to answer. And just wanted to remind you all that we will get a written Q&A sent out to everybody that has RSVP'd to this. And if you do want to make sure you get it, to contact Leslie Glover. He entered his email in the chat so that you guys could get in touch with him. And if there's anything else, make sure you get it in the box right now. We're going to start with one here. I have a background in plant biology, research focus in plant litter decomposition, and have a strong interest in pursuing a career in the NRCS. What can I do in my application to be considered for a position as a natural resource specialist if I've only taken one course in soil science and have some research working with soils? And as far as somebody answering this, I was hoping someone that knows a little bit more about the position description for natural resource specialists, maybe either one of our great FPAC folks or Roy Beck.
This is Brad. I can, from a HR perspective, that degree sounds like it would qualify for. We have multiple different job series within the federal government. These series of work fall in what we call the 0400 series. So it would be a 401 natural resource specialist, which a degree in biology, natural resources, plants, soils. It's kind of a catch-all, one of our catch-all series, and that would qualify for that job series. The question would then become, do you have the requirements or the experience for that specific job? Because the 01 indicates that it's a hybrid type of job, if you would, meaning a soil conservationist can do the work, a soil scientist could do it, ecologist, any of the other series in the 400 family can do that kind of work. So if you got a degree in plant biology, that degree would meet the natural resource requirement. It just becomes whether or not your resume meets the specific requirements for whatever that in particular job would be.
Great, thanks, Brad. Next question. Do thesis units count towards the basic requirements if the thesis topic is relevant to the series?
They're evaluated on a case-by-case. So if it's a thesis in soils, in the university awards credit for it as part of the program, we evaluate it based on a case-by-case. So the answer is yes, it can be. We just evaluate it as needed.
All right, great, thank you. Another one. Are there any opportunities for non-U.S. citizens?
This is Rick. Go ahead, Brad, and then
So non-U.S. citizens can apply for the internship program, but to be converted to a career appointment, a permanent appointment, you have to attain citizenship. Did you have something to add to that, Rick?
No, that's exactly it. Thanks, Brad.
Okay, this question may need to go to either Roy Vick or Dave Limbo. How were staffing and work projects handled at the beginning of quarantine, and how will COVID be affecting jobs in the future with NRCS?
This is Dave Limbo. I'm not sure if Roy is still on, but we were fortunate in that we've been able to adapt pretty quickly to COVID. It has meant that some of the field trips have had to be canceled initially, but then by following strict social distancing, getting out in the field, we've been able to continue to do our jobs. We've always taken the safety of our employees first, so again, following the CDC guidelines, but still getting out, actually doing camping has proved to be a really effective way of maintaining the separation that we need and still getting our mapping done in the field.
Yes, and a lot of the projects were shifted to more local projects, such as some of the sampling or dynamic soil properties. They were done on day trips rather than overnight trips to areas that are like 3 or 4 hour drive away. So the project offices out there have just simply shifted the focus of their projects to something that could be handled more locally or something that did not, require an overnight field trip. As far as we do have soil surveys going on in Alaska, Dave mentioned they do camping on their trips, but we did not have the people come from out of state on detail assignments to places like Wyoming and Alaska and other places to assist on those.
Great. This one maybe just goes out to the group and someone can answer this. Who is the main point of contact for this program?
Kendra, I'm sorry. For the Pathways program, Brad Shea is the main point of contact. But as we mentioned in our presentation, there are a number of other opportunities, internship opportunities, and other activities that we administer. Demetrius Boozer and I are main point of contacts for all things related to outreach and recruitment.
Okay. Next. Do recent graduate positions include positions suitable for PhD holders? Is there, I don't know if that was covered, but thought I would put it out there.
What was that acronym?
PhD.
A PhD, thank you. Yes. If they, I didn't hear the P. I thought it was a P. If they are, the requirement is the same. If you are within 2 years of attaining that PhD, then yes, you are eligible to apply.
All right, another good question. Can current NRCS employees that are recent graduates go through the program, or do they transition/transfer to the new series?
So if you're a current NRCS employee and you are within the requirements to be eligible to apply, yes, you can apply to the program. You would receive a new accepted service appointment, and you would go through the internship just as a brand new employee on the rolls of work.
Okay. Can someone elaborate on what the responsibilities of an intern may be during the academic year outside the summer months? Are students limited to whatever facilities are near them?
Well, I'll take that one too. So if you are a student and you're in the internship program, and then you, I guess there's 2 answers to this question. One is, if you are let's say you're going to Lincoln, Nebraska, Lincoln University, and your internship is at our Lincoln Soil Survey soil office, there's the possibility that you could, instead of going on leave without pay during the school year, that you could work a part-time basis maybe 20 hours or 30 hours of pay period during the school year in the lab. And that would be fine. And then at the end of that school year, you just go back to full-time in the summer. Conversely, if you are going to school in, I don't know, Montana, and your internship was in Nebraska, then when you're on leave without pay during the school year, you're doing your academics. You're just, you're at school, and then, the internship is just kind of on hold for you at that time. And then at the end of the school year, you come back. We do what we call return to duty, and you come back to work. And then, you work through the summer, then you repeat that process until the internship is over. There is limited opportunities sometimes where maybe there's a soil office in where you're going to school that you didn't do the internship at, and you can get some work hours there. That's handled on a case-by-case basis, so we handle that as needed. But really, it's if you're on leave without pay and you're going to school, well, that's what you're doing. You're going to school because, again, we want the focus to be on your academics, not work while you're in school, unless you're, again, in an area where you can work part-time.
Great. Next question is for someone knowledgeable about USA Jobs in particular. Do you prefer the resume builder from USA Jobs or my CV PDF format to upload in the application? And a follow-up right after that from someone else is related. Is there a recommended resume length? Would 2 pages be too long?
Brad, you want me to take that one?
Hey, go ahead, Rick.
So I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I hope you can hear me, folks. But so to answer that question, what I share with students is to do your resume on a Word document. Unless things have changed on USA Jobs, it used to be that there's a certain number of fields and space allowed to build your resume on a resume builder on USA Jobs. So that limits you in terms of being able to articulate all your work experience that you feel is important to compete and apply for that job. So I would encourage you to do it on Word document. The second half of the question is 2 pages too long? The answer is no. If you take a look at the federally formatted resume and the kind of information that we ask for and look for, it's almost certain that your resume can and should go into a couple pages, and we've had resumes that are 3-4 pages long. So as Brad mentioned earlier, it's important to be accurate and concise, but for those students that have a great amount of work experience, you want to be able to convey that in your resume because your resume is a key document to you being competitive for these pathways opportunities.
Thanks, Rick. Next question, somewhat related. For the Pathways internship, do you submit one application for all the internship positions, or do you have to submit individual applications for each position, even if the positions are exactly the same except location?
This is Brad. You have to apply to each position that you are interested in. If the vacancy announcement only lists one location, then that's what you're applying to. If it, you maybe, for example, you're applying to an internship in North Carolina. That's a vacancy announcement. There may be a separate vacancy announcement for an internship that is out in California. You'd have to apply specifically to that one also. We do use a process called bundling sometimes where we will put multiple positions on one vacancy. So with the interns, I'm not positive how the staffing team is doing the SPD one, but in that case, if there are 5 locations on the vacancy announcement, you're only applying one time, but there will be a radio button in USA Jobs where you will select which locations you are applying to. So you would only be applying to one time. But that's per vacancy announcement. Okay?
Brad, this is Demetrius. If it would help, each vacancy announcement has its unique vacancy announcement number. So if that helps, you are applying to a vacancy announcement number. So with a specific location or locations.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Is there a demand for botanists in the NRCS? And I can at least start the answer to this question by saying that within the ecology series and ecological site specialists that we have within Soil and Plant Science Division, botany is most definitely a part of that position. So depending on your background and your other experience with ecology and soil science, botany and your botany skills are most definitely desired and would be welcome as long as they meet the job description as far as other responsibilities and educational credits. And I would open that up to anybody else to add on to that.
Hey, Kendra, this is Rick. I would just add that for NRCS as a whole, botanists also can potentially qualify for the Soil Conservationist Series, again, provided you meet the 12 credit hours in a combination of plants, crops, and soils. So if you're a botanist interested in conservation planning, then as a soil conservationist for the agency, that's another avenue for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick.
Can I add to that too quickly?
Yes.
So we've been talking quite a bit, at least about some of the soils positions, but I just want to put out there that we are actually the Soil and Plant Science Division, which is under Dr. Dave Limbo. And we are obviously looking for botanists as well as ecological site specialists. So I certainly don't want you all to walk away with the impression that we're only just looking for soil conservationists or soil scientists. Again, NRCS has a whole host of different career prospects, and I think botany fits nicely within the ecological site specialist career track.
Thanks, Leslie. Another question. Is it the norm that stipends are received midway through summer experience? Or how might we fill in some more information on that process?
Can I answer that since I was the one who presented on it?
You bet.
It's my understanding that the reason it was delayed was because of an HR issue. I'm not sure if that's completely correct, but that was what I was told. That it was like a delay with accounting.
So this is Brad. Our stipend program is something we've written a new policy on just recently, and stipends cannot be paid until the student is on board, and then all the documents are received that are required and then submitted by the state office. So sometimes there's a bit of a delay, but we do have a brand new policy in our division that will handle that. Okay.
Great, thank you. I have one more question on some detailed expectations. I graduated about 5 years ago with a bachelor's degree in environmental studies with emphasis in sciences, but will be going back to school in the winter or spring to fulfill the hours requirements needed for soils. Would a minor in soil science or master's degree work best?
So I'll take that. I'm taking that as a question as far as eligibility is concerned for the program. We go back to the basic requirements of what eligibility means. You have to be enrolled in a degree-seeking program. So if you're going to be in the internship, so a degree-seeking program would just getting few more. If you go back to school just to get more hours to meet the requirement, but not be receiving a degree, then that wouldn't meet the basic eligibility requirement. If it's to get the requirements to meet the recent grad requirement, again, it would have to have been a degree would have to have been awarded when you were completing that. So not knowing the full context of your question, it sounds like it may be Do you need to go back and get your master's degree where you then go to degree-seeking program versus just acquiring additional coursework to meet the requirement? Because just acquiring the additional coursework is not typically going to award you a degree. But if there is a degree being awarded, then of course it would meet the requirement.
Great, thanks, Brad. Okay, we are over time, so I'm going to go with one last question. Is there an interview process to these pathways and internships?
I'll take it, Brad, and give you a break. This is Rick. Generally speaking, to the person who asked the question is yes. Although next week, there's going to be quite a number of positions that are going to be advertised when the whole process goes through the HR process and lists are given to our hiring managers. There may be many at once, so maybe our hiring managers are going to opt to just select based off of your resume. But generally speaking, our hiring managers do make every effort to conduct an interview process once they narrow down the number of applicants they want to interview. And especially now in the COVID environment, but in almost all cases, those interviews are either phone interviews or the use of some platform of technology now.
Thanks, Rick.
Great.
And I'll just add one last thing on the interviews is that for our NRCS team that's out there, we talked about this. I love the fact of doing the interviews. I see all interns and recent grads as an investment into our agency. So we want to interview you. I call it the $1 million investment interview. If we hire a brand new student and we bring them on our roles and you have a career with us that lasts 40 years potentially or 30 years, that can become a multi-million-dollar taxpayer investment. So we want to interview and make sure that that we're getting the best of the best. Because if we hire 700 interns this year and we keep 400 of them for 20 years, that is a multi-million-dollar investment in the taxpayer money. So yeah, we really want to stress those interviews very good for you.
Hey, Kendra, if I could just add one quick thing.
Yes.
Leslie Glover mentioned and referenced the virtual recruitment toolbox that's available to students where there's a lot of resources and information to that end, how to do an interview, those sorts of things. We too, in our section, we have quite a few handouts and resources available to students, including interview tips, resume templates, things of that nature. So students, you're welcome to reach out to us. We're happy to share that kind of information to help support your application efforts.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Q&A is now complete for this webinar.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Folks, outstanding job. Thank you to each of the speakers. Some great opportunities. I encourage you to take a close look of the upcoming vacancy announcement. And if you are interested, please apply. So with that, I'm just going to yield the floor to Leslie Glover for some closing comments. Leslie, you have the floor, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, we really appreciate you guys for coming out. We certainly are looking at this, as Brad just mentioned, as an investment and an opportunity, really not only in you, but for our nation and really for the world. I mean, our agency is really heavily engaged with trying to conserve our environment, and we are very passionate about that. I know I can speak for everybody. I hope to be able to speak for everybody that's on the call here from NRCS as well as the Soil and Plant Science Division. And so we really look forward to bringing on some new faces and some fresh blood and some fresh ideas. So we're looking very much forward to it. I just wanted to show you a quick slide here towards the end and really just thank all the folks who really helped to put this together along with the FPAC Business Center. I don't have the FPAC Business Center's folks picture on here, but I really wanted to thank them as well. But just to show you, NRCS and SPSD, we are really a diverse group, and so we're always looking to try to improve upon that within our division. And then I also will just bring up this last evaluation slide. So I think I put it in the chat box on several occasions, but here's also a QR symbol. Please take some time to fill out the evaluation. We definitely want to make this better as we move forward. We want to stay connected with you throughout this year and moving forward. Who knows? We may be meeting face-to-face and seeing you as a part of our agency. With that, we will be sending out the Q&A. We will be sending out a completed slide deck as well as the link to the recording to everyone. So have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Take good care.
Thank you.